is viral. TikTok baked feta pasta has taken over the internet. It's easy to see why. This dish only requires one pot and about 20 minutes to make, and yet it tastes like something straight from an Italian restaurant. Today we're going to break down the recipe so you know exactly what to do and when to do it. And make sure to stick around, because I have some tips and tricks that will help you out when you make this. Also, we'll give you some ideas of what to serve along with it to make it a complete meal. To get started, grab a large bowl that can go into the oven. You can use a glass bowl or a ceramic one like I am today. A good size would be about 2 quarts. The reason why you need a bowl that can go in the oven is because we're going to bake this entire dish right in the bowl. Next, grab a block of feta cheese. The recipe calls for 7 to 8 ounces. Typically buy the smaller block at about 7 ounces. If you can find a block that's closer to 8 ounces, you could probably just buy a smaller container of tomatoes. Then you won't have to cut the tomatoes as much. And I always think it's fun to buy the ingredients as you need them while you re-shopping. That way you can try out new recipes without having to commit to buying a bunch of random ingredients that you might never use again. Once you have your bowl and your feta cheese, then add in a pint of cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are not only easier to cut than regular tomatoes, but they also hold their shape really well when they bake. It's much harder to find ripe tomatoes in the wintertime, so I love using these in the colder months. But if it is summertime and you can find some truly ripe tomatoes, go for it. Just expect that they might fall apart a little bit more. Then, you want to drizzle about a 1/4 cup of olive oil over the tomatoes and the feta. Now is a good time to mention that all the ingredients in this recipe are pretty flexible. The beauty of this recipe is that you can really make it your own, and that includes the ingredients. So if you want to use a different type of oil, maybe you want to use avocado oil, or you don't have olive oil, you can certainly substitute. You can also use a different type of vinegar or lemon juice. Or if you want to add some of your own spices or seasonings, go for it. This is your dish. Make it how you like it. Next, add in 2 cloves of minced garlic. If you don't have a garlic press, here is an easy trick to help you quickly mince your garlic. First, cut off the top of the garlic. Then flip it over and cut off the bottom. Now, you can kind of cut a slice through the middle of the garlic horizontally. Then do the same thing on the other side. You'll notice that the garlic kind of falls apart a little bit. Now just take each individual piece and chop it up. You don't have to chop it up super fine, but just chop it up a little bit so that it's easier to eat. If you do have a garlic press, feel free to use that instead. Then, add in 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And I'm just going to warn you now, if you have never tried red pepper flakes before, they are very spicy. Just a little goes a long way. If you want your dish to be spicy, then feel free to use a little bit more. But if you're really not sure if you like spicy food or you're re-cooking for people who are unbig on spicy food, definitely start with just the red pepper flakes that the recipe calls for. And then finally, add in some salt and black pepper. Now it's time to toss the tomatoes to coat them in the oil mixture. You can use your hands to do this or a large spoon. And you'll want to do this fairly frequently while the tomatoes are baking. That way you'll get an even coating of oil. And now we're ready to bake. We'll bake this for 25 to 30 minutes, or until the tomatoes have burst and the feta is nice and golden brown. Since we're baking this uncovered, you do want to watch it closely towards the end just to make sure that it does unburn. I typically set a timer for 20 minutes, then I come back and check it. Every time I take it out of the oven, I like to give the tomatoes another toss. This helps the tomatoes release their juices and helps that delicious sauce develop. I'll do this 2 or 3 times during the baking process. While the tomatoes are baking, cook the pasta according to the package directions. And I know this is a weird thing to say, but you'll want to save some of that pasta water. That starchy pasta water will help us thin out the sauce later if it gets too thick. So, after you drain the pasta, then set aside about a 1/4 cup of the pasta water, and then you can move on to the next step. After the tomatoes have burst and the feta is nice and golden brown, then we're ready to combine the pasta. But first, you'll want to turn the oven off and then carefully take the bowl out of the oven. Be careful because the bowl is hot. To be honest, this whole dish is pretty hot at this point, so be careful. Next, add in your drained pasta and toss to combine. You may need a little bit of that pasta water to thin out the sauce and bring everything together. Just add in a little at a time until you reach your desired consistency. And once it's all combined, you're ready to serve. Now, I personally like to serve this with a little bit of fresh basil. All you have to do is grab a few leaves, rinse them off, and chop them up real quick. Then, sprinkle them on top. And it adds a nice freshness that complements the flavors really well. And that brings us to the end of the recipe. As I mentioned earlier, this recipe is extremely flexible. So if you don't have feta cheese or you don't like it, you can use goat cheese instead. Goat cheese does tend to be a little bit more crumbly, so you may have to mash it a little bit more. Or you could also use mozzarella cheese. Just know that mozzarella cheese is going to melt completely, so there won't be any chunks left in the sauce. And if you don't care about that, then by all means go for it. You can also use different vegetables. Like if you don't want to use tomatoes or you can't use tomatoes for whatever reason, you could try using roasted red peppers or even zucchini. If you don't want to use cherry tomatoes, you can certainly dice up some larger tomatoes. Just expect that they might get a little bit softer. You can also add protein to this. If you want to make this a complete meal, there are lots of different ways to do it. You could add in some cooked bacon or sausage. Or you could add a scoop of pesto and some cooked chicken or shrimp. And then you can serve this with a nice crusty bread. And it makes a great lunch or dinner. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. It's such a crowd pleaser. And it's been really fun to watch all the different variations that people have come up with on social media. So make sure to share this with your friends and family and tag us so we can see what you make. Thanks for watching and happy baking!